Episode 1, Daily Life and Battle in Paradise, Part 3. The next night. Today was the day of the battle. Sho stood nervously in the gazebo at Myron's cruiser house, checking the time on his watch. Almost there. It had been a week since the last battle, and Sho had devoted his time to training. However, he didn't feel as though it had made him any stronger. Rather, he was more worried that nothing would happen in just 1 week. Surprisingly, it was Myron who was more nervous than Sho. Shokuen, she too, seemed calm, but her arms were folded, and her hands were clenched so tightly that her nails dug into her skin. Shokuen, it's time to go. Then, from the earpiece of the small receiver attached to his ear, he heard the voice of Cabot M at the base. At the same time, one small firework went off from the center of the island, the mountain. It was a signal for battle. At last, the battle was about to begin. Shortly before that, Sho had been in the underground base receiving final adjustments from the Cabots. Ready? Shokuen. The main goal this time is to get used to this fight. Don't even think about trying to win by mistake. Yes, sir. I understand. M instructed Sho, still using the language of a firm committee chairman. The other Cabots followed with words to Sho. The other side is probably going to take a wait-and-see approach this time, but we're also gathering information about their patterns and habits, so please be careful not to fight too passively, Sho. This time, Sho's guardian has been adjusted mainly for defense, evasion, and speed, so I don't think you'll lose easily. Yes, but that's only if I do it right? Kay said, and a nervous Sho asked unsurely. Then F interrupted him. It's fine. It would be bad if the 4 forces were to collude, but I don't think that's likely, Shone-chan. But once we get out of the base map, we're going to keep fighting until our time is up. Don't be too eager to get back to the base. Yeah, I'll do my best. The adjustment is perfect. Good luck. Yeah, thanks. I trust you guys. Sho clenched his fists tightly, his desire to get a good result for these kids intensified. That's what I took into account when I set up the simulation training, so don't worry. Have a little confidence, Shokuen. Besides, we'll be here to monitor and give you instructions, okay? Yes, this is a video device and audio receiver that will project information. Put them on. Yes, sir. Good. Then cheer up and go. Yes, sir. I'll do my best. Yes. I have M and the others with me too. Okay. Remembering what he had just said, Sho made up his mind. Myron-sensei, I'm off then. Sho activated the Guardian system and generated an energy force field around his body. He jumped straight out of the boat and flew towards the jungle. Watch out, Shokuen. After seeing Sho off, Myron hurried straight to the cabin of the cruiser, where she was glued to the monitor that was showing the battle situation. Sho flew over the jungle in his guardian and looked at the screen on the wearable device the Cabots had put on him, a small, glasses-shaped monitor. It's almost. On the screen was a map of the entire battlefield. Sho, who was staring at the enemy's red dot of light in it, managed to grasp the situation. There were less than 10 red dots that could actually confirm the enemy's position. The rest were hidden in the invisible blocks of the opponent's position, and their exact location could not be ascertained. However, their expected movements were faintly displayed as green dots of light, and Sho followed with his eyes as the dots of light turned red and became invisible again, whenever their positions were occasionally identified. Calm down, and come. As practiced, the 2 red dots closest to Sho were rapidly approaching. It was already possible to see them with the naked eye. Damn it. Sho first tried to fire a check shot with the Vulcan, but the enemy didn't seem to be intimidated. But firing at the enemy in actual combat was an important first step in battle for Sho. Shokuen, keep your distance. Avoid close combat. Understood. Following M's command, he immediately tried to start retreating. But then 3 new enemy fighters came flying out of the invisible block nearby. Whoa! The first 2 dots of light were decoys. The remaining 3 fighters were waiting close by as Sho moved. It was a simple but effective strategy that he could not avoid, as he was at a strategic disadvantage with only one square. The three new fighters immediately opened fire on him. In the meantime, they were allowed to get even closer. And to his surprise, one of them was a familiar face. Apuesta. Show. We'll get him this time. Apuesta's guardian was equipped with huge arms again. If caught by it, there would be no way to escape. He had to escape anyway. Shokuin. Sho managed to escape from Apuesta's hands by performing a rapid evasion with automatic control, and the display on the monitor switched from a direct view to an overhead view. Sho, unaccustomed to the rapid blurring of vision, would soon become intoxicated, so the monitor switch was to avoid that. Shokuin. Just retreat first. I'm going to get back into position. Yes, okay. Apuesta was stunned as Sho ran away as fast as he could. Suddenly all the fighters came to capture Shokuin. Apuesta-chan is a girl who does drastic things despite her pliant face. Muttered admiringly to herself at Sho's base. So, I guess our intentions have been read to some extent. No problem. It's still within the expected range, One-chan. K, F, and D were also staring at the war monitor with different expressions on their faces. Dird, Aaliyah, how do you two see it? The voice belonged to Palti. Palti had been following Sho's movements closely in her own block, which did not show up on Sho's radar. Not only Palti, but also Dird and Aaliyah were watching Sho very closely as he evaded Apuesta's attack earlier. That one. Sho's engineers seem like good guys. What do you think, Dird? I don't know much about operations and such, but that evasion pattern makes me think that they're a GP type. I see. Palti nodded as if satisfied with the two's answer. The three of them couldn't tell that the technological system that Dird had instantly guessed was actually correct, but Palti, who knew Dird and Aaliyah's eyes well, felt that they were probably right. I'd have to look more closely to tell, though. But if it's a GP type, it might be a bit tricky. Well, I'm going to let you go in alone. I'm sure he'll have a staff of his own. Palti, you're not going to let me be the only one to get the information, are you? What do you think? I'm going to go check that out now. What? Hey, Palti, wait a minute. Palti cut off communication with the two and saw the red on her radar heading toward her. Then, with the power of the Guardian, she made a powerful leap. Sho, I'm coming. She quickly accelerated toward Sho, who was close enough to catch her with the naked eye. She had been lying in wait all along. Whoa! Now Palti. Sho's face trembled in astonishment. Palti's weapon was a tall sword. Palti's Guardian, which was tuned as a fighting machine, showed its true value only in close combat. Moreover, she herself was a legitimate martial arts user. Sho wouldn't stand a chance in a proper fight. Shokuin, don't ever go at her in close combat. Damn it. He tried to run away, but Palti, speeding full throttle through the jungle, wouldn't let him get any distance, and Sho quickly found himself on the defensive. That's not good. It looks like they're going to attack us one by one in their areas of expertise. I knew it. I'm going to gather information on this side. Following D mumbled something like that. Paltione-chan, huh? The technology is based on Jurai, so the evasion prediction works reasonably well, but it's still a bit hard in close combat. Her combat level is quite high. At this rate, Sho-san will be. That's right. We'll be pinned down. With M's words, the place was filled with intense tension. As expected, two new Palti team fighters had jumped out from the invisible block near Sho. Shokuin. Evasive maneuvers up in the air. Yes. At M's shouting voice, Sho hurriedly turned and flew up into the sky. But I won't let you get away, Sho. Palti's quick movements kept her close to Sho. Damn it, I've got to do this. So Sho decided to use the example weapon that he had prepared in the back of his mind. It was a special acoustic weapon that could reproduce the sound of a blackboard being scratched. He had prepared this when he adjusted the Guardian, and it had already been incorporated into the operation. Sorry, Palti. The guardian's arm extended, generating that sound. Screech. Screech. Huh. Kaya. The sound emanating from Sho's guardian made Palti cover her ears involuntarily, slowing down her attack, and she fell unsteadily towards the jungle. Sho took the opportunity to break away. He breathed a sigh of relief, but Shokuin, don't let up. M's voice made him tense up again. Sho, it's me this time. Dird. The next to appear was Dird, whose arms and legs were equipped with gauntlets and anklet-type weapons. She seemed to want a completely physical battle. Well then, I'll go too. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Dird's wild and irregular attacks were difficult to evade even with the automatic evasion program, and Sho was quickly knocked down into the jungle after being tossed around. What? Sho managed to stay still on the way, but Dird's attack power was quite strong. Although the Guardian prevented it, even Sho's arm was numb and tingling. Dird. That's a messed up attack, but it's hitting the blind spot of our evasion program. It's a pretty nasty opponent. What am I supposed to do? Calm down, Shokuin. Anyway, keep your distance from them and stay calm. That's the basic rule, and it's still the same. Yes. But even if you say so. Sho! It's too late to have a strategy meeting now. In the meantime, Dird approached rapidly and punched Sho. Sho managed to avoid the attack by using automatic evasion as well as using his eyes, but there was a limit to how much he could avoid an attack that seemed to have read where he was going to move. Damn it, I've got to do it. So Sho used that sound weapon again here. Screech. Screeching. That unpleasant sound spread throughout the jungle and then disappeared. The sound had shown Palti its immense effect earlier, but Dird, however, was grinning with a non-pulsed expression on her face. It's not working. Pfft. Dird put her hands on her hips with a triumphant look on her face. That's too bad. I turned off all of the external information sensors just before I left, just in case something like that happened. Sho and M were appalled at the simplicity of the strategy. Yes, there were ways to prevent Sho's acoustic weapons, one of which is to block all external information sensors, as Dird had just done. However, this would also turn off all information functions, which would be a dangerous action that would leave them to fight only with their eyes and their own judgment. Dird, however, was in no hurry to speak. Let's continue then. Sho! Damn it! Sho continued to desperately dodge Dird's attacks as she approached again, but then the Cabots advised him. Don't panic, Shokuin. That enemy is Dird. Try to remember her normal behavior. It's also important to read her attack patterns from her image. Gosh, that's what you said. As he had been told, he tried to predict the attacks and movements that Dird might make, but her movements were too fast for him to think that far ahead and move his body. However, even so, the rate of getting hit was slowly decreasing. I can't. I still can't avoid it. That's fine. The hit figures are definitely going down. Moo. Sho just keeps dodging. In spite of her overwhelming advantage, Dird's attacks gradually became monotonous, perhaps due to her frustration at not being able to attack Sho. A big gap was created there. Shokuin. Yes. At that moment, when Dird made a large fist, Sho dodged it by a paper-thin margin and firmly grabbed Dird's arm with his guardian arm. I'm sorry, Dird. What? The moment Dird was appalled, Sho activated his secret weapon. Screech. Screeching. Ganayan. Yanyan. Dird suddenly flailed around, holding her head and running out of control, crashing into the jungle trees, plunging into them. Ugh. Oh my god. What was that? Dird shouted as she fell, and Sho couldn't help but take a guts pose. I did it. It worked. You had the best timing, Shokuin. This was an even more secret weapon that they had prepared in case their opponents took countermeasures against acoustic weapons, and although it had the disadvantage of requiring direct contact with Sho's guardian, it would force the opponent to be exposed to sound waves by conducting them directly from the body. As expected, M and the others had anticipated that the opponent would take countermeasures. That strategy worked, and they managed to neutralize Dirt. But, ugh. Just when it seemed that things had settled down, something suddenly flew from far away and hit Shou's guardian, the shield that had been deployed, with a violent sound. It was a long-range shot. I knew Aaliyah was here. Shou immediately knew what to expect, so he was able to react immediately. That one shot was the signal for a flurry of long-range shots that seemed to come from Aaliyah's team to hit Shou. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Shou dodged them one after another, aided by his excellent evasion program. In the end, only the first shot hit Shou before the storm of bullets stopped. Damn, are you serious? Aaliyah was getting impatient. She had been sniping at Shou through her scope from afar, but the only shot that hit was the first one she fired. She had fired with the intention of ending it with that one shot, but Shou had guarded against it with his fast-deploying shield, and all subsequent shots had been avoided. Damn, if it wasn't for the fact that the shield's properties killed its power, my one shot would have been the end. It was calculated from the start. Shou's mechanics are pretty good. Dirt and the others called out to Aaliyah, who was complaining like that. Aaliyah, what are you doing? Aaliyah should be the one to decide. It's rare that Aaliyah can only guess that. That's how well Shou was trained. Aaliyah, don't worry about it. Oh my god, shut up. You guys weren't good at all either. Aaliyah shouted in response to the girls' voices in her ear. Their coordinated plan failed miserably. Finally, one of their team members approached Shou, which triggered the whole thing to turn into a melee as usual. Whoa! There's so many of them! Shou was surrounded by a large number of enemy fighters, and it seemed that Dirt and the others had lost their patience and decided to attack in force of numbers. It was a very simple, but extremely effective strategy against Shou, who was only one man strong. Damn it! If this happens... Screech. Screeching. Shou immediately uses the sound weapon. But, the enemy fighters stopped for a moment, but they didn't look particularly flustered. Grin. Enemy fighters laughing. And he knew. They had all taken the same measures to turn off their sensors as Dirt had. Damn it. What am I going to do? Shou panicked, then he heard M's voice in his ear. It's okay, Shou, calm down. If they leave their sensors off, they won't be able to follow our evasion program. Wait for your chance. Chance? But... Shou couldn't believe he was being told that. However, there was no time to dawdle, and seeing Shou in a panic, perhaps they judged it as a good opportunity, and the enemy fighters began to move in unison again and attacked Shou with their respective weapons. Whoa! Whoa, whoa! Shou frantically ran for cover, activating his sound weapon in the process, but his opponents had turned off their sensors, making it completely ineffective. But Shou noticed that the enemy fighters were not turning off their sensors all the time, but they were turning them on every once in a while to get information. In other words, the chance that M had mentioned earlier. Don't worry, Shou-kun. You can do it. Believe in yourself. That's right, One-chan. Go for it. You can do it, Shou-san. Please aim hard. Your chance will come soon. Look carefully. Yes, yes. M, F, K, and D. The voices of the four cabots inspired Shou. He circled around again and again, flying through the air in circles so fast that it almost made his eyes roll, but he kept waiting. Just a moment, just the right timing. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. His heart was beating wildly. However, his breathing was strangely calm. And the moment came. Now. Just as Shou activated his acoustic weapon. All the enemy fighters had turned on their sensors at once. Screech. Screeching. Kia. The enemy fighters that had been chasing Shou all crashed at once into the jungle, screaming terribly high-pitched screams. Shou was the only one left. Yeah, did it? It's done. I did it. Shou's face broke into a smile, and he struck a guts pose. Dirt and the others, on the other hand, were a bit distant from Shou. Wow, they're all dead except for us. That was close. I managed to cut the sensor in time. Shou is horrible. We've been hit, haven't we? It looks like we've lost this time. As they watched their friends fall into the jungle one after another, the girls calmly assessed the battle situation and understood the miraculous timing of Sho's attack. They were even impressed with how well they had been hit. Then Minamata sent the signal to end the battle, and the day's battle came to an end. Wow! That's great, girls. Look at that. All the fighters have stopped moving. Yeah, that's great, Sho-san. You've managed to survive your debut. Still the same disgusting sound. As expected, your timing was perfect. The 4 cabits that were monitoring at the base were all impressed. Basically, I was able to get by thanks to the evasion program, but like when you prevented Aaliyah's long-range shooting, that was brilliant for your first fight. That's right. One-chan, you hardly attacked, but your defense was good. F said, and they all nodded in unison. Also, I had thought of a countermeasure for the sensor off, but I'm nothing short of amazed that you were actually able to catch that moment. The timing of the trigger was perfect. Turning off the sensor would certainly disable the acoustic weapon. But at the same time, it would put a huge handicap on the combat action. That's why the enemy would activate the sensors for a moment and act based on the information obtained there. With this in mind, M and her team put their faith in Sho's compatibility characteristics and waited for the right moment, the moment when all the sensors of the enemy fighters were turned on. And Sho did not miss that moment. The timing of the last use of the wide-area acoustic weapon was exactly the moment when the enemy aircraft opened their ears that had been blocked. However, the other side has captured quite a bit of information from us this time, hasn't it? It can't be helped. Yeah, it's all right, One-chan. I got a lot of information too. Right. Now let's hurry up and modify the program for the next battle. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Gong. Myron's cruiser house. There, after confirming the end of the battle and Sho's safety, Myron made a loud noise, plopped down on her desk, and let out a long breath. How harrowing. You make me feel it all, Shokun. Despite the anger in her mouth, Myron's face was filled with relief. Myron then hurried outside to wait for Sho's return.